Okay, it's always good to see that the audience just outnumbers the actual board members, so thank you for attending. My name's Owen. This will be recorded for everyone to view, so we are going to treat it as if we have a huge audience. So welcome. This is our public board meeting where we'll run through a few things. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't actually read that. We're going to do the approval of our minutes. We're going to approve our budget moving into 2025. We're going to have a strategic plan update from Tim, and then we're going to talk about our priorities for the next 6 months. And then it's open as a Q&A. We want to be as transparent and open as possible about everything that we do, so feel free to bring your questions, comments, concerns, and ideas. So without further ado, Tim Doyle, CEO, Drupal Association.
Thank you. I'll sit down for this, if that's okay. So if we could just, we're going to go through the meeting part quickly, so then we'll adjourn and have time for questions and answers. So if I call the meeting to order, if I get a motion, and what I would suggest that we approve both the minutes and the budget at the same time. Just so folks are aware, the board spent the last 3 months working on our 2025 budget. It was a lot of work, given where the association is and the industry is somewhat at the crossroads of finding a revenue model for open source that works. So we do have a budget that we are seeking to approve today. No worries. Do we have enough chairs? I can stand up, actually. Do we have enough now? Yes. Yes. So could I have a motion from a board member to approve the minutes and the budget?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second. Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay. It's passed. Thank you very much. What I would like to do is to go through a quick update to our strategic plan of the Drupal Association, which we're a little over a year and a half into a 3-year plan that was approved in 2023 in June. It had 3 primary objectives: innovation of Drupal, marketing of Drupal, and then raising resources for the association and for the community. And we are glad to report that in a lot of these goals we're doing very well. So in terms of innovating Drupal, we were tracking, we wanted to triple strategic contributions, not total contributions, but strategic contributions to the project in a 3-year period. And the graph you see before you tracks company contributions, but the individual contributions are very similar. And as you can see, we are lagging a little bit behind where we want to be, but the line's going up and it's improving. A lot of that obviously due to the excitement generated by Drupal CMS. But the DAO has also taken a role of trying to be a broker between those that have resources to contribute and the needs of the project and so forth. So I think we're on track with that. We had a second goal around innovating Drupal, and that was to grow the Drupal Certified Partner Program, to double it in 3 years. I'm very happy to report that we already achieved that. We're at 108. Our goal is 106. But we also realized along the way that that's not sufficient. So we need to go, we're moving the goalposts a little bit. And while officially this goal has been met, what I'm saying now is that we need to actually go to about 300 Drupal certified partners globally in order to have enough firms globally to contribute valuable, or make valuable contributions to the project, to keep it innovating, and to keep the business model of open source working. So we did achieve this, but now we're looking to actually go from the 108 that we have here to 300. And then we had a goal of getting new leadership into the Drupal, the folks that may be part of the community but hadn't had leadership roles. And we are on track to do that. 11% of the identified leadership roles. Our goal is to have 25% of leadership roles filled by people that it was their first time in a leadership role with Drupal. We're at 11% now, so we're about halfway there, and that's looking good. Again, I think the work done on Drupal CMS and creating that leadership team allowed new folks to jump into leadership roles. Our second objective, which is marketing, which is basically to, we want to push the adoption of Drupal globally. And you've heard we've hired 2 product marketers. We are doing a lot of activities. We help promote Drupal CMS at the launch. We just put out a deck that markets Drupal CMS. And going forward, and we're rebuilding Drupal.org. So the priorities this year are continue to rebuild Drupal.org, work on the SEO for that. We're going to build out more marketing materials and branding materials to complete that work. Event marketing, so we were at the Higher Ed Web Summit last year. This year we're looking to go to Digital Summit, N10, conferences that are outside the community, and we're working with partners to be at those conferences. And then lastly, we're going to continue to market Drupal CMS with a particular focus in reaching mainstream media in getting the word out about what's going on in the Drupal community with Drupal CMS, especially with the launch of Experience Builder. And lastly, we had a goal of tripling our revenues. This is the one goal that's been the hardest. And I think the board meets before every DrupalCon for a weekend retreat, 2 days. And this took up a lot of time this past weekend talking about how do we build sustainable revenues for not just the association, but really for the Drupal project and the Drupal community. How do we build a model that doesn't continually cycle through kind of feast or famine type of cycles, but actually builds a sustainable model? One thing we will be looking at, which may be a part of that, would be the marketplace. We'll be investigating whether that is something that would provide sustainable revenue. But our revenues have been generally flat for the association, and we need to grow that because there's a lot going on, and there's a lot that needs to be supported with the Drupal project. And right now, the DA doesn't have the financial resources to support it in the way that we want to do that. So that's going to be a particular push on certainly in the coming 6 months, is to try to continue to create that revenue model that actually grows sustainable revenues. So that's the update. That's a strategic plan update. The last thing we had that came out of this retreat this past weekend, 5 areas, and we could talk more about this during Q&A, but there's 5 specific areas that the board will be working and looking at over the next 6 months, the remainder of 2025. One is a creation of a European working group to see how we can better serve and be more active in Europe as an association. We are global. We're set in the U.S., but we represent the global community. The DA has 2 staff in Europe, 4 staff overseas, 5 staff. So we are trying to become more global, but in particular, European is a market that is, one, recognizing the value of open source, more so than the US does right now. And we think there's a lot of activity at the local level with the network of European Drupal associations, and so we want to see how we can better support that. Second, we want to build greater value into the Drupal Certified Partner Program, and I think what you'll see is us doubling down on supporting Drupal Certified Partners. So we're going to start driving anything that the DA can do to drive business to Drupal Certified Partners. That's what we will do. Those are the companies that are contributing back and supporting it, so we want to do everything we can, and that's going to be the focus of how do we add value to that program so that we're driving all the business to DCPs. We are visioning what the future of DrupalCon should be. We have some clarity on that. We could talk about that during Q&A. But looking at our numbers always a lot of energy at DrupalCon, always a lot of cool ideas coming out. Since the pandemic, we have settled in around 1,400. This is the first time that we're at a hotel, not a convention center. So we're trying new things to figure out what's the right model to keep that, it's the energy, the excitement, and the ideas that are the most important aspect, not the number of people necessarily. So what's the right way to run a conference and create that energy and excitement if our numbers are 1,200 or 1,400, year in, year out in North America? But also, how do they connect to DrupalCon Asia? We're announcing our second DrupalCon Asia in Japan. And then how do we continue to grow DrupalCon Europe, and how do all 3 of these work together? Then fourth is enhanced contribution pathways. And the board talked about two things. How do we get new contributors on and make it less friction to become a contributor and to continue to contribute? But also, how do we connect companies and agencies that are willing to contribute with what the needs of the project are? And we've been doing some of that with Drupal CMS, but there's a need to do that in a better way, in a more efficient way. And then lastly, as was talked about in the Dries note, the site template marketplace analysis. So evaluating site templates are going to be built. Should there be a marketplace on Drupal.org? Should it be something that's charged for? Is it a revenue source or not? How do you make sure that you have lots of templates being built? How do you create incentives so it gets populated? And how do you drive traffic there for people that want to test out Drupal and see the site? So we're going to take on just that analysis of what should be the DA's or Drupal.org's role in the marketplace with site templates. So that's the update, and so you can expect to hear more of that, and all those things. We'll have an update at DrupalCon Vienna in October. So with that, unless there's anything else board members want to say, I would suggest that we adjourn the meeting and go to Q&A. Could I have a motion? So moved. Do I have a second? Thank you, Piyush. Okay, so all in favor of adjourning, say aye. All opposed? So be it. Okay. So, whew. Okay, now this is the fun part, question and answers. So there are 2 mics, or you can just yell from your seat, whatever you're most comfortable with. As he yells from his seat.
Don't throw anything.
Yeah, so this is a chance for the community to ask any questions of any of the board, and so let's start.
Hello.
Hello.
I've got 2 questions. So you talked about attending the higher ed conference last year and going to N10 this year. Are there other industry verticals that you're looking at attending, like Vive for healthcare or anything like that, to try to establish more of a footprint for Drupal in those spaces? And then with the European working group, have there been any conversations about trying to expand events or focus in like the Middle East? Because with the agency that I was working for, the market in the US was severely down last year. Not just Drupal, this is primarily a site core agency. But in the Middle East and in Asia, it had gone up significantly, and also in Europe. So, and I know that there are organizations in the Middle East that are having directives now to use only Drupal. So those are my 2 questions, thanks.
Lynn, do you want to take the... Yep.
So thank you for the question about events. So we continue to look at what events we're going to do not only through the rest of this year, but also into next year. And so we don't have a specific vertical one that's next on the list, but what we want to do is work with our DCPs, work with our partners, and ask them to participate with us. So if we have enough interest from a couple of partners, say 2 partners, that would be great. We could all do it together, share some costs, and then we could target particular industries. So, so let us know if you're interested, and stay tuned. And hopefully we'll hear more from partners about that.
Yeah, and I would just add, we sent out to DCPs a list of potential ones. Nick, can you raise your hand? Thank you. So that's a guy to talk to if you're interested. And Nick, since I put you on the spot, were there any noticeable other verticals that you can say? Government, healthcare, marketing. So there, we have a list, the ones we go to, depending on what partners are interested in.
Who's answering the second one?
I can start by answering the second one, because it's quite a broad question. So the first part of the question was around the Middle East. So I think what we've always done as the board is to look at where Drupal's potential is and to try and do our best to have some structures in place to support that potential. And so Michael, who's sitting behind you, took the reins on DrupalCon Asia. We ran a very successful DrupalCon Singapore. I can't even remember when that was. Was that earlier this year or late last year? A blur. But we've got another one happening in Japan, and I think the stat that I like to use around Asia was about 4% of the Drupal community and 4% of Drupal sites are in the Asian market, but that market accounts for 30% of the global economy. So there's literally a tenfold potential of growth in Asia alone if we're just following statistics. And to my knowledge, we haven't looked at the Middle East in any detail yet, but like anything, like Michael did, he just came to us and said, I see potential here. This is how I think it could work. So by all means, talk to us about that. And then I just want to finish on a note that we are very reflective of a global community on the board here, and we do take a very global perspective to Drupal's future. And obviously, the US has been a very, very important market for us that's being affected by certain forces outside of our direct control at the moment. And so we are definitely looking at being able to look to areas where Drupal has very strong current potential and future potential, and Europe and Asia and the Middle East are definitely on that list. And there's a hand up at the back there.
Just want to add that we do have one Drupal certified partner actually in Middle East, so we are aware of the market and definitely are interested in expanding it.
Next question, Anoop.
My name is Anoop John. I have multiple questions. Am I allowed to ask multiple?
Last one.
Only one?
I would expect nothing less.
Okay, I'll do that. So the first question that I have is, there is an initiative in the community to organize local meetups, and it needs a lot of scaffolding to make that happen if you want to make it really happen across the world. And we have people who have been working with Drupal 15, 20 years spread across the world, and we will be able to mobilize them if we can provide them some kind of support in doing some kind of marketing around that. One of the items that was proposed to Drupal.org was to announce our local events to those visitors from that IP location based on that event. So simple stuff that we can do. We need a little more capacity, full-time capacity to support an initiative like this, which will allow us to start these groups and which will give us more capacity as a community later. So the question is, would DA be able to bring a little more organized capacity dedicated to organizing local groups across the world?
Yes. So I think we're able to bring some more capacity. So Joy, who's on the DA staff, her focus, I'm not sure if Joy's here, but her focus is working with local associations and local events. So she spent last year building relationships and learning what's needed, and there was a list that was provided that was helped. Barcelona, they started brainstorming things that needed to happen, and she's working down that list. Right? But she's just one person, to your point about scaling. These are part of the resources we need to raise if we're going to really be able to do things at a little bit better scale, right? To support a global events requires, more than just one person. I will say also that we are rebuilding, as we redo Drupal.org, we're looking at that events page and how do we do that better. So your IP idea was interesting. And that will be part of one of the deliverables this year is that events page being a better resource.
Yeah, given that we are hiring globally, right? We could actually be hiring in India or South America to get more resources organized for the amount of capital that we are going to raise for that.
Yep. Yep. No, I'm aware of that, and I think those are good opportunities for the DA. Question?
Thanks. My name is Matthew Saunders. I think just first comment, the goal of increasing revenue from 3.4 to 10 and change is awesome, but there's a big but there, right? It seems like with the overall depression of the tech market and layoffs across the industry, including in our community, we've seen this happening like a bloodbath across our community. It seems like that might be challenging for the DA in its current traditional model, and I do hear you making sort of plans that seem a little vague maybe at this point around a marketplace, which could bring in some income. And we're also seeing decreased attendance at these events, both in Europe and also in North America. So my question is, other than marketplaces, what specific ideas do you have to close the gap and actually increase revenues?
So that's a good question, and so of course when the strategic plan was first made a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, the economic climate was a little bit different. So it's certainly acknowledged, and this has been the headwinds that we've been up against. We're not putting all the eggs in the marketplace basket at all. The templates is part of the innovation that the project is doing. So we're saying, hey, there's an angle there that maybe we can build a sustainable revenue model. We are looking towards the Drupal Certified Partner Program as a way. That's why we want to go from 106 to 300, because if we have 300 companies committed to a culture of contribution back to the project, both in code and in finances, then we think we can build an ongoing sustainable revenue source that is consistent from year to year. We are also looking at, so we're relying less on DrupalCon, not just because the numbers are going down, but relying on an event for your revenues is not the safest thing, as the pandemic taught us. But we are looking at other type of events that we can do with partners that are focused on bringing end users together. And that can be also a source of lead generation for companies, but also revenue generation for the Drupal Association. And then lastly, adding value to the DCP program would include, as Dries indicated in the Dries note, the ability to have lead generation on Drupal.org, which we don't effectively have right now. And as we rebuild Drupal.org, and we have case studies that are exclusive to Drupal certified partners, and then the ability of a site visitor then contact that DCP directly from the site on the case study that they did. So I think if we can build better value into the Drupal certified partner program, make it something that companies want to be and strive to be a part of, that will provide us the revenue. And then ideas like Marketplace, or we have a Drupal Steward program, which is a service that we sell, a security service. There's avenues for additional services like that we're looking at too. Next question.
Hi, my name is Nora Medlin. I am the lead of MidCamp and also a fractional operations person at various agencies that will take me. But more or less, I'm seeing also a lot of changes in not only the job market, but also for agencies needing to step back and be maybe potentially a little bit more strategic about what their plans are moving forward for their employees and for their business in general. And I hear you, what you're saying about contact forms on case studies and things, or case studies. But I do feel like that there needs to be a little bit more intentional referral type things happening. I don't know if that could be possible or reasonable or ethical. Those are kind of questions, I think, right? But I do wonder about this question, right? This question of how can we get more business in? Could some sort of referral process? I know in the jobs market, referrals are absolutely necessary. Warm referrals are absolutely necessary to get jobs. That's what I help with in the job space. And I think that same sort of thing has to happen, not just at events. We're talking about outside of events and normal business practices. There needs to be like more sort of talk happening about who's best at doing what. And I do think a contact form is a great idea, but I feel like it's not enough. So I'm just kind of curious if there's any other thoughts around referrals.
I'll start. You might want to jump in, Lynn. So I think the view of the board for the last couple of years that's reflected in the strategy is that we need a great product, something like Drupal CMS, that people know about through Drupal marketing or product marketing, in order to get that funnel bigger. And I think what I've expressed to the board is that Drupal grew up through a period through the 2010s, which was a big growth vector for everything. And now we're entering into a period of uncertainty. And we're also entering into a period where the competition for the types of services we provide is exponentially bigger than it was 10, 15 years ago. So I think Built With.com tracks 400 plus CMS products. The good thing is Drupal is still the clear number 2 in that market across the board, and it's about us being able to capitalize on the strength of the product and ensure that people know about it so that we're getting that initial interest in the product before we start talking about capturing leads. Once they do come to the website, Lynn, how do we capture leads and then refer those onto people?
well,
Was that what you were going to talk about? Or?
It wasn't, but that's okay.
Yep.
That's fine.
I was just trying to do a clean segue.
I know you're trying to, yeah, I get it, okay. So, first of all, let me just say that we know that this is an issue, right? Because we know this is what people want. People want leads. They want to be referred to. So we continue, and I'll say this, and then I'll ask Tim to jump in. So we continue to look at ways of how can we update the site so that we can get referrals out to partners, and then we can get more specific. And if we have certain partners in certain industries, let's make sure we're presenting them on the page. Let's make sure it's clear to people who are the partners that are really good at, in the government industry, for instance, or other industries. So we continue to look at other ways on the site. The contact form is one to do on the site, and we're looking at kind of other ways in general about how we can do better about providing leads and sources. So we do think about it. It's top of mind. I don't know, Tim, do you want to add to that?
We did make the change to we had all, for the last year, only Drupal certified partners are listed, and we adjusted the program so that their ranking is based only on their code contributions and their contributions to the project or to the community, not financial. But that list is now that's exclusive to Drupal certified partners. That's what is top of mind, and as top of the site, and as we continue to roll out D.org updates, we will look at how to position that better. But at least from my perspective, it's everything going to the DCPs. That's my mandate. I want as many companies as possible to make a commitment to contribution, creating a culture of contribution in their organizations, and we want to do everything possible to provide value to them.
So if I can jump in here a second. Drupal Association and Drupal in general has a lot of activation around those who are makers and those who do use the software. But all of us are dwarfed by the number of end users who actually use the product. But we don't have a direct relationship with most of them yet. So as I'm thinking about the Marketplace initiative, that's actually part of that is certainly to improve the product, make it easier for end users to adopt Drupal, but there's also a secondary opportunity there, which is for us to establish a cleaner, closer relationship with those who are actually using the product. And that, from my perspective, would be the first step before we could even consider any kind of brokerage service, right? So I think that that's a missing link. It's a great opportunity for us and something that we'll be talking to agencies about and talking about as we look into the marketplace. So once we have better telemetry around who's using Drupal, then we can start a conversation around, hey, how might we support you in getting those needs met, whether it's a warm handoff or the contact fulfillment, or even helping procurement officers insert appropriate language to understand that if they're issuing an RFP for Drupal, it should be a Drupal certified partner. There's a lot of upside and opportunity, but that takes time to build those relationships that I just don't think we have yet.
That's a good point.
Okay, so my name is Carlos Ospina. Some of you know me. I have a question kind of on regionalization, and I know I've talked to many here about this. And I'm going to give an example first on the difference on regions. Is minimum salary in countries like Colombia and Latin America, they are monthly, right? If you think on the United States, minimum salary is $7.25 an hour. If you multiply that to a month, you are on $1,200 a month, something like that. In our countries, that will be between $200 and $300 a month, the minimum salary that anybody will make. Now, you can extrapolate that all the way to companies, enterprise companies, prices, etc. So we've been talking about the Drupal certified partners and DrupalCons. Is there any plans to have special prices and special ideas for these regions? Because this is the reality. When we try to sell the Drupal partnership in Latin America, the first question will be, what's in it for me? And the second question, that is way too expensive for what we make. So in terms of regionalization on the partner part, is there a plan to have different prices per region and kind of understand the economic realities? And on DrupalCon, it's kind of the same. The way these events are made in different countries are also different. Like in Latin America, it's very common, or at least in Colombia, it's very common of having these kind of fair events where actually you pay for your spot, and what the organization does is actually go to end users and start inviting people and offering for them to come. And it actually becomes a real, business kind of model. So thinking of regional DrupalCons, can we start thinking about DrupalCon Latin America again? And please. And second, could we do it in a different way that kind of resembles that model, then actually we have a business coming?
Yeah, so thank you, Carlos. And first, on your first question about the pricing on like the Drupal Certified Partner Program, we do put that on our website in US dollars just to have a standard. But I want to be clear, we do discount that for lower cost countries. So we use a price parity index and we'll lower it. So I don't know what it is for Colombia, for instance, but if you're a Colombia Drupal Certified Partner and that's your market is in Colombia, then you're paying much less than what you see on the website.
I forgot. Can we make that known? Because, so it comes because we talk, and I was asked, can you ask the companies in Latin America? And they don't know that exists. So they don't even think about the program, because being a gold is like $1,000. That is excessively expensive for most of the companies that are working inside the market. Right. But it's not known. It should be known.
Right. So we can make that known. We hesitated to list lots of different indexes, but we can obviously try to make it more known. But we certainly do when we talk to people, we let them know. But good, valid point on that. And then on the DrupalCon question, outside of the whether there or not there could be a DrupalCon Latin America, but the model that we've done in Europe and in Asia is to license the DrupalCon brand to the local committee that then has, they have to keep certain standards, but they have a lot of latitude to kind of evolve that program the way they want it, the way they want to. So, it doesn't have to be a strict format, if that's your question. But that's how we run it outside the U.S. is we license it. If there's enough local support for it, including some financial backing at the local level, then we're able to license that to that group.
I think the important point there is the local organizers need to approach the DA and say, we're ready, here's our model.
We're ready?
Yeah.
And also, I would love to help. So pull me into your meetings and I'll help.
Ashraf?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ashraf. So my questions are related to ideas I've been hearing. So Nora mentioned the RFP process, and as a very small company, we don't actively seek RFPs. If they fall into our lap, wonderful. We think there's opportunity, but we're not going to go seek them because it's an inefficient process. I think it would be very appealing to companies if you were to essentially put a simple form, it could even be a link instead of an upload to keep it super simple, on Drupal.org, where you say submit your RFP. And when companies submit your RFP, you can keep it super simple and don't say, just for the sake of simplicity, you could launch this tomorrow. Don't say we are going to refer you to a recommended partner. Say we are going to share it with all certified partners. Within a week, you're going to have a lot more certified partners, and you just put all the disclaimers you need to. We're not vouching for them, we're not doing anything, we're just being the middleman. Because not only the partners that want to find RFPs, it's the people who write RFPs that want to find partners. I've gotten them coming to me somehow, and I have a little debug academy, like, why are you contacting me with an RFP? But I've had little agencies contact me and say, hey, we have an RFP, we don't know who to send it to. So I've been part of the migration partner program, which has been great, but that's sort of, you show them our logo, they have to reach out to us, which I think is fine to keep for that. But I think the RFP flow would be different. So first question would be, would you be open to considering that? The second is, I've been through Debug Academy. We've been working on this product, Drupito, which is basically low-cost Drupal CMS hosting. And we've actually been developing a marketplace for quite a while. So seeing it mentioned today was interesting. And I'm very curious, and I'd love to hear more. But we'd be interested in collaborating. We're almost there already. We're at a point where you get low-cost, $10 a month, free included upgrades, et cetera, with the ability for people to come in, build their own Drupal CMS templates and offer it on the marketplace, send it out, synchronize updates, et cetera. So we're actually quite far along with that, and we'd love to partner, do revenue share, et cetera. It could be one of multiple options, but basically for both questions, I guess they're more of ideas. Are you open to considering them?
Sure. And don't tell Noop that you got to ask 2 questions.
You have to do it and then ask for forgiveness.
The good news on the first one, we are looking at doing an RFP. I don't know, Tim, what do we call it?
Portal.
RFP center?
RFP portal.
Thank you. And there's a survey going out to Summit attendees here, end users, saying, hey, what would be valuable to you? So we are actually moving on that, and that's going to be done. On the second question, anyone want to comment on the marketplace? I don't know, Dries, if you have anything you want to say, or?
I look forward to having you involved.
Yeah.
Great. That's it.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So we have 12 minutes left, 13 minutes left. We got
Quick 5.
5 questions.
I can use the 12 minutes, that's fine.
Mike?
Is it my turn?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So I'm Mike Richardson. One of the things I'm involved in is the Drupal Developer Survey. It's open now and it's available in 12 languages, so if you haven't filled it out, please do so. One of the questions this year is about English proficiency. We have about 500 responses so far, and what I'm seeing in that data is about 30% of respondents are not proficient in English, and only about 40% are native speakers. Is that something, as you talk about going more outreach globally, is the ability for people who don't speak English as a first language to be able to access resources and engage with the project and with the DA and all of the work that everybody's doing? Is that something that's on your radar? And if so, what are some of the plans around that?
I would say it's been on our wish list, right? And it comes down to resources. I think we happen to make software that's incredibly good at multilingual, and yet it is a resource question for us whether we avail ourselves of that opportunity. So I think that's definitely something that we have wanted to do for a long time, and as we grow the resources the Drupal Association has to provide that kind of infrastructure, then we can. But right now, the project's primary language is English, and so that's what we must provide. There are things that we could provide and things that we probably should provide that we can't yet.
I think the Japanese community really led the way there with a model that is good when we're constrained by our own resources, and they just went ahead and wrote a whole bunch of books in Japanese for their own local community. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Question?
Hi, my name is Charles Drake, and I was wondering if you could share more about the strategy around DrupalCon. I know back in the day, I felt you guys were more open, sharing stuff, maybe in posts on Drupal.org, such as why one year it's on the East Coast, why is it on the West Coast, the price tag, stuff like that. Yeah, I was wondering if you could share more just around the strategy of DrupalCon or where to find more information.
What specific, just about overall DrupalCon? What do we want to do about it in the future?
In the future, trends too, are we getting more, is international people for Drupal, this is more DrupalCon North.
Okay.
For me, what's the trend for international attendees and stuff like that too?
So you may have noticed, and all of the post-event surveys are available on Drupal.org, so you can really dig into the data there to see where people are coming from and kind of see if there are any interesting trends there. But I think one of the really important things that we're looking at right now is that we're losing about 10% of our attendees per year since COVID. And so that doesn't feel great. I want to be growing the community. I want to be reaching more people. And so the other piece that we're looking at that's really interesting is that while we have 25% per DrupalCon in North America is new users, we're still kind of coming down. And so as Tim mentioned previously, one of the things that we're trying that's a little bit different this year is instead of doing sort of like a big, huge convention center like we did in Portland, we're trying it in a hotel this year. And you know, over the weekend, we asked each other, well, what if we did it in a university? You know, how would that feel? How would that land with the community? Is that the direction that we want to be going in? And so a lot of the research that we've been doing in the Future of DrupalCon working group over the last year is looking at who are the personas at DrupalCon. What do they need? How are they connecting and engaging with each other? And so we have careerists, people who've been doing it for a long time. We have new people. We have potential clients and users. And we have, of course, our agencies and businesses. And the question that we're really digging into right now is, well, how do we make DrupalCon into this really special, important piece of the ecosystem for our community? But we also really want to make sure that we have leads for our businesses, because when our businesses have leads, then we have jobs. And when we have jobs, we are happy. So this is really important to us, especially right now, especially in North America. And so I think the next question that we kind of need to explore in the working group is, are there other events that we could be partnering with? Are there other opportunities that we could be exploring to really bring in those leads so that we can then turn and maybe make DrupalCon a little more community focused, a little bit more, you know, like less production value? Is this the right direction? So we need to do a little bit of research. We need to work with the DA staff, kind of validate, is this the thing? So we are very we're very open to the needs of each of these different personas and how they all connect. And we really want to do this the right way. So we're not going to rush into any big changes. Yeah, I'm always happy to talk about it more. So if you catch me in the hallway.
I think just to address your question about how we're communicating this, that probably hasn't been done as publicly as you might have liked. But we have moved to a model for North America where we have a local community steering committee. Yep. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
And so a lot of the input and decisions is actually being made by community members around those decisions. So I think take it as noted about how that gets communicated back out to the community more effectively.
Absolutely.
6 minutes.
Hi.
1.5 minutes per
I'm
question.
Lawrence Miller, longtime listener, first-time caller. I have been in the Drupal community long enough to remember about a decade ago when we had our own crisis of governance and the lessons that we learned from that, and many of them were very hard to learn. I'm wondering, what lessons are we learning from the implosion of our cousins over at WordPress right now so that we can avoid those same things when a Drupal certified partner eventually, inevitably, sad to say, gets bought out by a venture capital group that then tries to hold all of their contributions for ransom?
So George DeMette has a session on this tomorrow at 4 o'clock. But I can tell you that, you know, the executive committee is very aware. I particularly dive into all the filings, and we're very clear on some of the issues at play. And I think regardless of which side you may come down on in that dispute, I hope we all agree that how that conversation has unfolded is not great, right? It's not great for anybody. I think that's in a lose-lose situation.
Yeah, I had said yesterday at dinner that if it was on Am I the Asshole, it would have been Everybody Sucks Here.
It would have been yes.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. Yeah. No, so George is going to talk a lot about that. But yeah, we are very aware and learning the things we can.
Yeah, and I'll just add, so when this issue in the WordPress world emerged, we took stock of all the concerns that were arising out of that dispute, and Tim Doyle authored an entire blog post talking about governance in the Drupal ecosystem, and goes into how our model of governance is highly distributed. There's lots of checks and balances in terms of who has decision-making control over certain things, and we're very conscious of avoiding anything similar. Anoop, question number 2.
I have 2 closely related questions. They are closely related because they are close to my heart. Okay, one is we need more funds for our local events, and if we aggregate all our local events, we can actually pitch it to very large organizations and then fund them all as one premium, diamond, platinum, some sponsor, GCP, AWS, and all of that. That's one thing for our local events. Across all our events, we have probably tens of thousands of people attending. Okay. One thing. Second thing, we are struggling as a community with a lot of people out of jobs. So just like we are taking care of agency partners who are certified and who are contributing, there must be, and I believe we should be, doing something more to actually help direct, point, refer, recommend people who are out there looking for jobs to people who are actually, who have this opportunity, not necessarily just in agencies. Because our problem is, as a community, we tend to interact with agencies and we try to see if we can find opportunities among them. But the problem is that there are no jobs within the agency ecosystem and we're having to go out and find. So maybe there are ways, I'm sure, I'm positive we can find those ways if we search for them. So these are two questions.
Part 1 of your question, we're definitely looking at models for sponsorships to be across multiple events, both at a local, regional and global level. So the development team within the DA, partnerships and development, they're looking at that approach. Second part of the question, we have not looked at that as far as I'm aware. Have we?
Can I just add? It is really, really important that we are connecting talent with great employers, but those employers need to have opportunities available in the first place. So that's really where our focus is right now, is just helping the business network and the people who have these jobs available make more jobs and be really successful. So you are doing great work, though, via the Drop Times in promoting some of the people who are available. So we'll keep making those jobs, and then you keep collecting the people who can fill the spots. How about that?
Our needs are so immediate, and these long-term agency-based activities are kind of medium long-term, right? So our problem is that we are struggling. A lot of people out there are struggling, and I feel we should do something more than what we are doing right now, whatever way we can figure that out. I mean, I'm just putting it out as an urgent problem that we are facing as a community with a lot of people out of jobs.
It is. It's true. It is true. And ultimately, it always boils down to resources. I would love to talk to you about a job board. There's a really cool one that I love called Key Values. I'll show you the link.
All right, Matthew.
One day.
We're going to get the last question in the last minute.
Yeah, do it.
Matthew Saunders again. So I really appreciate the comment earlier on about how through the 2010s we were capturing small, medium-sized, large enterprise. Like it was, as a community, we were doing a really good job of managing to deal with all those different kinds of markets. I think that when we hit Drupal 8, we sort of teetered. We kind of made some strategic bets around enterprise as a whole, and that's on us as a community as a whole. But I believe that we need to be in a position to capture that part of the funnel again. We need to be in a position where small organizations, nonprofits, mom and pop shops can stand a site up for $2,000 or less. Like, I really think that is critical. Has there been any talk on in terms of the DA on how we recapture that funnel and whether we're too late?
I don't think we're too late. I'll answer that if that's okay. Sorry. Well, I mean, a lot of the Drupal CMS strategy is about reaching out to a broader audience, site builders, marketers, and as I mentioned, to strengthening our presence in what I call the lower end of our market. So that doesn't mean necessarily the mom and pop shops. I don't know if Drupal will ever serve them the best, to be honest. Like, I think there's so many SaaS solutions available today that are probably, honestly, better solutions for them. But I do think what we're trying to do is reach more people. And I showed that slide with the funnel. You know, we're trying to get more people into Drupal by making it easier to use, cheaper to maintain, you know, site templates, marketplace. I mean, everything that we're doing is about growing the top of the funnel and getting more people into the project. I mean, I don't know if you have great ideas for other things we can do. I think we would love to hear it, but we're very, very focused on that. So we want to bring some of that back. And I think that's exciting. And we'll continue to work on that. That won't happen overnight. You know, it's going to take a little bit of time for us to get there, but we'll get there. And is it too late? I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think long in the future. I hope Drupal will be around for 10, 20, 30 years. And if you think that long, then it's okay to take a couple years to get there. So.
And on that note, we'll wrap up. So thanks for your interest and attendance. It's great for us to see that people are interested in what we talk about. And we really appreciate all of your input. Feel free to talk to any of us at any time. And enjoy the rest of DrupalCon.